The reason you still feel burned out even after you've made some changes and put some boundaries in place is that burnout isn't only about how much you do. It's really about the inner role that you believe you have to play. And if you really stop and think about that, that inner role, if it hasn't shifted, that pressure isn't really going to go away. The pressure, that burnout is going to kind of still feel like it's right on top of you, even if your schedule looks a little lighter. It's because we need to heal the burnout emotionally and spiritually, not just physically and mentally with better boundaries. And today we're looking at anxiety that shows up as burnout and how do we heal that spiritually with a 3-step practice that you can use so that whenever your anxious thoughts pop up, you won't let burnout take over. Let's get into it. This is the Balance Journey, where we're all about building proactive success from the inside out by partnering with God for healing and aligned action. And when I say role, I don't just mean like a job title or your responsibilities on paper or as a parent or anything like that. I'm talking about the quiet, unconscious roles that are underneath everything. The roles that you and I took on emotionally long before we really knew what we were doing, mostly in our childhood, where we just told ourselves, I have to have everything together. If I can stay one step ahead of everything, nobody will get upset. And for me, that's exactly how it was as I was growing up. One of my inner roles sounded like I have to stay organized and stay one step ahead so that I can help my mom just do what she needs to do so that when my dad gets home and he needs to get ready to go to his next meeting, that he won't get angry because dinner's not on the table. And I didn't realize this about myself, until I started looking at my patterns in this way of realizing that I was starting to let go of some responsibilities, but still feeling that burnout pressure. So here's the thing, we get a lot of praise and recognition most of the time for being efficient and being a go-getter and being somebody who gets things accomplished. But trying to keep the peace and stay ahead of the blow up, that was really the underlying thing I was doing. And that wasn't going away just because I started doing less. And it probably hasn't gone away for you either if you haven't identified your role. So here's a 3-step mind, heart, and spirit process that you can consider as you want to take a different look at your burnout. Step 1 is really the first step in figuring out the role that you keep playing. So you want to just notice that first of all, it is self-imposed. And accept that, because you know what? You got to give yourself some grace. You're not wrong for having put that role upon yourself. It was a way for you to survive. It was a way for you to maybe even thrive, right? But as you notice that role, you're going to want to name the pressure that's behind it. And in this step, you're just admitting to yourself and to God whatever is swirling around in your brain. So if you're thinking, well, if I don't handle this, then no one else will, then maybe that's kind of a fixer role, And when you think, well, everyone depends on me and I have to be the strong one or the responsible one, well, that's a type of role as well. One really helpful question at that moment is to just say, well, what is truly mine to hold and carry in this life? You might have never asked yourself that question, and it's time to do that. You're saying, what role do I no longer need to carry? And what pressure am I putting on myself that my soul is asking me to release? Because that's where the struggle is, right? It's this tension and this friction that you're feeling, even if you have lightened your load on your schedule. And that's all step 1 really is. It's just noticing the role and then honestly naming the pressure that is behind it, the pressure that it creates in you. But this step is vital. It's so vital in your process. So sit for a moment with spirit. Take the time to just say, what's really going on? Ask for the help to get to the root of whatever role that you're afraid to release. And just know that once you're mentally aware and you're saying, oh, that's emotional lies, old patterns, then you're actually ready to do something with it with Spirit's help. You will no longer be run by it. And that's where we come to step number 2. Step number 2 is the spiritual interrupt. This is where you've already mindfully, you've looked at your anxious thoughts, you've said, that's actually more an underlying emotional problem that I have, right? You're recognizing it as a role, but now you're admitting these things to God, and that spiritually interrupts them. That spiritually interrupts that subconscious cycle, and it starts neutralizing it for you. So what does that look like in practice? Well, first of all, let me just tell you, be so happy with yourself that you are awake to this, because you know that you don't want to be in discomfort anymore, and you're starting to realize, oh, it's about this role. And then either out loud or in your heart, you're just saying something like, God, I accept that I don't need to fulfill every role. I am willing to serve, but this overwhelm and this burnout is telling me something. I'm serving from a role that I guess you never needed me to carry. I'm overextending myself. Help me to just trust that my value comes from who I am in you and what I can handle and fix and carry without feeling it needs to be more than my fair share. And also help me to trust that I can choose balance. I can choose differently so that I find my personal balance. And you know what this is doing? This is you saying, I'm not just asking for more energy to get things done, even if it's a slowed down version of getting things done. I'm actually asking you to reshape who I think I have to be. And I'm telling you, that was huge for me, and it will be for you too. So as you've moved through that step, you are understanding that step number 2, the spiritual interrupt, has such an impact because by you taking your action, you're mindfully choosing to interrupt all of that automatic anxious loop that you've always been in, that's all related to the role you felt you had to play. And you're activating God's action because you've interrupted that and you said, okay, God, come here, be with me. And that shifts the vibration, because that's the part that Spirit takes care of for us. It shifts the vibration of what's happening inside you emotionally. That's what has happened for me every single time, and that's why I can share that with you now. That's the missing part that actually heals the burnout spiritually. It really just kind of neutralizes things so you don't have all of that baggage still sitting in your heart. But there's one more piece to this process. Step number 3 is where you release that role and you walk in purposeful peace. You're saying, okay, God, if I don't have to live in this burnout role, what does balanced, purposeful peace look like for me? And you have to ask that question honestly. You have to really want something different. If you are really ready to release the role and consider an evolved perspective, you're going to find it. Because God's like, okay, now she's ready to expand. Now she's ready to really step into less fear-based kind of action. And then you're just going to stay alert to whatever clarity you receive. It doesn't mean that it's just going to be this amazing light bulb moment, but you will receive a sense and you're going to continue to say, okay, well, what does that look like in my daily action now? For me, as I kept releasing my role, God was showing me that really I was chasing validation, but I was also chasing a sense of peace. If I could just help to do what needed to be done, then we would have smooth flow and peace. So I was trying to control everybody's mood to feel safe. The clarity I received was that even if I did everything perfectly, even then, somebody could still blow up, have an issue with me. And when I realized no matter how much I try, it can still be not enough, something just clicked in me. It was like a gentle inner sense, it just felt like this spiritual reassurance that was just letting me know, you have limits, and that's okay. It's not a failure, it's a design. And other people's reaction is not your responsibility. And like I say, because I had done the spiritual interrupt, because I had brought the vibration and said, please help me with the part that I can't do anything about, I was in a more settled place for that to land. If you're hearing what I'm saying and you're like, no, that's not going to work for me, give this a try and definitely don't miss step 2, because in that spiritual interrupt where you're saying, I want to heal spiritually, you've got to give God a chance to actually dissipate the vibrational stuckness that you have related to the role you were holding on to for so long. So what could it look like to just release the old role and take on the new? The old role is usually something about striving. And in that sense, let's just say you're dealing with a difficult family moment or something. A child is melting down, your partner is grumpy, your parent is being demanding. The old role might be your peacemaker. You're a peacemaker and you immediately think, okay, I need to fix this so nobody gets mad, and you walk on eggshells and you over-explain. Whatever you're doing, it's all in that role of, I've got to get ahead of this, I can't allow the mess. So you're doing everything, but it's kind of with a hidden agenda. You're trying to circumvent any fallout. And like I said, when I realized I can't even control that no matter how hard I try, because I did a pretty dang good job of it, then you realize, well, I can have my boundaries, but now I have to release the role part, the part that still bugs me on the inside. The vibration was fear and manipulation for me, and maybe it is for you too. And it's going to leave you exhausted, right? You know that feeling. You're trying to do the impossible because you think you can control all the moving parts. It's such a childhood mentality that we took upon ourselves, that role for so long. The new way is just walking in purposeful peace. What that means is that you actually finally accept the limit of your ability. And that's a humbling thing. But it's possible, and it really is freeing. When I did that for myself and the spiritual interrupt had allowed for the vibrational tension to kind of dissipate, I realized that it is okay to be who I am and to just say, okay, I can accept these limits. You can accept these limits. The limit of your ability doesn't take away from who you are. It just means that you stop taking responsibility for everybody else, for their mood, and you just take responsibility for you and your actions, your intentions. And that might look like saying, okay, well, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to help with this, but this I cannot accomplish right now, right? You might have to tell that to your kids. You might have to say that to your aging parent or whatever. If they get upset, you just don't rush to fix it anymore. Because when you've done this work, you're able to say, I don't have to scramble to soothe everybody and make everybody feel better, because then I will feel better, right? That's the part that has always been burning us out. You just stand in your own peace. And then you can just say internally, I offered what I could with a pure heart, with an intention that is in alignment with the balance that God needs me to be in, right? Their reaction is their journey, not my burden. And obviously you got to put things in place so that, nobody's just beating you up with their insults or something. Even children will do that to us. You are going to hold your ground because you are coming from that place of being more purposeful. And when you stop playing the role that tries to buffer any negativity and you just simply show up as yourself, then you are letting God handle the rest. This truly does give you peace, but it's only in those little steps where you say, let me give this a try. Let me just, return to the spiritual interrupt if it's flaring up again, and then come back to saying, okay, now let me just walk forward with a sense of settledness that this is enough. I don't have to do more. Then the boundaries you're putting in place and all the things that you've done to heal your burnout will truly feel like you have healed all the way through, because you are no longer still having those nagging thoughts where you're like, oh, I should get in there because, this could go wrong, right? It's not forcing a new mindset. It's just letting God gently clear whatever you've been carrying emotionally and vibrationally, and just guide you as you walk with him into a way of being where you can give and you can serve, but you're doing so from your balance. These 3 steps are you meeting God in the middle of your burnout, your overwhelm, and allowing for that spiritual exchange to really happen. And if you want a fuller picture of how to be in that spiritual exchange, that's what I talk about in the next video. I show you how one word can help you reframe how you're interacting with God so that you're supported in letting go of the old emotional lies and just moving forward with spirit, intentionally with spirit's support and guidance. So click the link right here, and I will see you over there.